What's up guys, Vinny here bringing you the 4-1-2-1-2 second variation formation guys slash 4-3-1-2 if you want to play with obviously the 3 centre mids version depending on your preferences. But for me, straight off the bat, I prefer the 4-1-2-1-2 second variation just because of the DM. Gives you a bit more security in defence. But yeah, this is a formation guide tutorial, sort of like what I would use, sort of what I suggest with certain players maybe in certain positions. And get a pro sort of perspective of what players to pick in what position, because at the end of the day, as a pro player, I'm gonna have more of an insight in the formation, maybe what other people don't consider. And yeah, I'm not really a user of 4-1-2-1-2. I used to use it back in like FIFA 18, 17 when I was first coming up into the pro scene, but as like the years gone on, I've gone more to the 4-2-3-1 and like the wider formations. But 4-1-2-1-2 is still one of the most fun formations to play with. If I ever like play draft, it is the go-to formation I always pick just because it's so easy to score goals. I think that's what we need to do when we play FIFA, is just to enjoy it. And obviously playing with a 4-1-2-1-2 and a 4-3-1-2, you're going to score goals. You might concede them, but you're also going to definitely score goals. But yeah, let's get into the different custom tactics and whatnot. Before actually we do that, we have done, I think, 4-2-2-2, 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1. Let me know if there's any other formation guides you want to know about. I'm going to probably do a 3-5-2 formation guide, but I might change up the style of videos. These type of videos right here are more me going into like detail of different styles, what's effective with different formations, but none of them are really like giving you maybe custom tactics to use. So I'm going to probably change up the style of the video coming up in very shortly. We'll start with the 3-5-2 and basically just tell you how to use these different formations. If it was me, the best custom tactics for me personally, and then hopefully it comes into your sort of play. Because you see my custom tactics, and obviously they're custom tactics what I will use, no matter what. But there isn't like a generic custom tactic what other people use. I see like the other people like Ovi and whatnot obviously show you custom tactics and whatnot, but I think I can give you a bit more of a better insight than what they do, to be honest. Because I think they just come up with custom tactics and tell you that they're good, but how much are they tested? I don't know how well are they tested. Who knows really. Obviously they might work, but at the end of the day, there's some things what a top pro can give you like more in detail with. But anyway, let's get into this. The defensive style, we've got balance, pressure on heavy touch, press after possession loss, constant pressure, and drop back. Personally, once again, I go about this always in formation, guys. If you're playing to win, drop back and balance will always be your go-to. So if you're wanting to win, you're not wanting to have fun, you're not trying to enjoy you're not trying to try anything outrageous, you're not trying to take risks and whatnot. Drop back and balance will always be your go-tos when it comes to that. It's always the tactics what every single pro player uses, just because it's so safe. And press out the possession and heavy touch can obviously, it has risk at the end of the day because you're putting more people from your defense forward. So if you're trying to play safe and you're just playing for the win, you want quite a balanced sort of system, drop back and balance will obviously be your go-tos. If you want to be a little bit more, adventurous, you want to try different things out, pressure on heavy touch and press after possession loss will obviously be good. If you want to be a little bit more attacking when you're defending, you're just literally trying to score goals non-stop. So they're pressure on heavy touch and possession loss. Personally, I prefer heavy touch. Previous years, I haven't really tried too much with press after possession loss or heavy touch this year though, due to I think balance and drop back is still the best for me, even when I go balance, because I mentioned my manual press is quite good. If you're quite good at manually pressing, you're not needing the game. If you use the second man press and obviously you get on a guy and press as well, you don't really need to try these pressure on heavy touch and possession loss, because you could probably do quite a nice press with balance and with high depth. But obviously if you're not the greatest at pressing, player switching and whatnot, the press styles are obviously better for you. Constant pressure is obviously if you're a few goals down and you really need to go guns blazing. The best thing about 4-1-2-1-2 though is that it's that formation you're always going to go to, and you're going to create chances no matter what. Whoever you're playing, you're going to get chances, because 4-1-2-1-2, there's so many people going forward, and it's very tight. You can do the ping pong passing, whatever it may be. Obviously late into the camera, maybe finesse shot from outside the box, whatever your sort of system of play is, you're always going to make chances 4-on-2-on-2. So if you're a couple goals down, it's a great formation to go, or you just enjoy playing fast-paced sort of stuff. 4-on-2 is also very good. Going into the width though, I would say keep this balance. I wouldn't, uh, go too tight because, as I mentioned, your team's already naturally tight. You haven't got any wingers to help you defend. You've got right centre mid and left centre mid, and your right back and left back. Really, when it comes to like wing playing, the right centre mid and left centre mid tuck in quite tight. So I would recommend having a 5, maybe even 6 sort of width, but probably just keep it at a standard 5 width, just because you don't want to, stretch the team, or you don't want them to be too tight. So I definitely recommend having it in the middle. You can have best of both worlds that way. At the end of the day, depth. Once again, as I mentioned, if you're trying to play safe and you're playing for the wins, go for about a 3 or a 4 depth, depending on your obviously defensive style. Or to be honest, even pressure on heavy touch and possession loss, you could probably play a low depth with it as well, but still be quite adventurous in defence. But I think about a 3 or a 4, especially with narrow, as I mentioned, is not the best of formations for defending, them tight games and tough situations. Narrow is not going to be that formation you change to what's going to, get you through a rutty game, what's just a boring game where the guy is keeping the ball. That's not what narrow is there for. Narrow is there for you to get the ball back quick and just play, fast-paced attacking football. So, if you're like just trying to use narrow off the start, I would use about a 3 or a 4 depth, whatever style you want to play. Probably constant pressure is probably not your best option to use, obviously, off the start, because that is going to drain your players ridiculously quick. But depth, then eventually, like if you're a couple goals down, you can obviously up the depth to about a 6, 7, 8, whatever you may do, whatever the scoreline is, sort of the sort of depth you want to go to. Like say if it's a 1 goal, maybe I only want to go to like a 7 depth, but if it's 2 goals, I'm probably going to ramp up to like a 9 or a 10. And obviously, if you're a couple goals down and you still want them to stick with narrow, up your defensive width, because this will naturally put your team wider. So when people are switching the ball non-stop, you can get the ball intercepted a lot quicker. Offensive styles now, though, you obviously got long ball, fast build-up, possession, and balanced. I think all these actually surprisingly will work with narrow. As I mentioned with 4-2-3-1 and 4-4-2, and that some like styles like fast build-up, I personally wouldn't use on 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1, because you've only got 2 people in the middle, and it's going to be quite hard for you to get the ball from like defense to midfield to your attack. But when you're using a narrow, you could probably use fast build up and long ball if you want. That's if that suits your play style, because you've got like these CDM and 2 centre mids who are going to always be there most likely for an option, and your CDM is always going to be like your pivot player. So that's why I say you could probably use them. But personally, as I mentioned, I prefer to probably use a balance or possession. You know what you're going to get out of these. They're very standard sort of style, and you're never going to like be caught in a bad place in possession at the end of the day, because you've got always options with balance and possession. With fast build up and long ball, your players zip up. But the reason I can't use fast build up is because a lot of times I'm sort of passing it around from the back, and my right back and left back will zip up like basically into like wingers sort of position, and I can't basically build up from the back that way. So that's why I don't use fast build up. I think long balls, if you want to be a bit more direct, long balls probably the better style. But as I was saying, possession or balance for me is the way to go. If I was using narrow, I'd probably go with a possession. As I mentioned, it's quite a tight sort of formation, or quite a ping pong formation. So if you have like a possession, everyone's always going to give you a feet option, so you can always do the 1-2s tight triangles. And that's why I recommend possession is probably the best for. If you're wondering why isn't pros using this, there is one pro who was using this weekend in Foot Champs Cup 1. His name's Dullen Mike. Obviously you might know him, you might not. Young German guy is one of 3 Foot Champs winners, and he's unbelievable at this game and previous year as well. But he uses 4-1-2-1-2, so you can definitely use this at the top level if you wish. Don't think because I'm saying it's bad for me, it's not probably going to suit to my play style. There is players out there who use narrow and it works for them. And the way he had his team set up, I think he has quite a low depth, about a 3 depth, standard width. And I'm not sure about his attacking styles, but I think he has everyone come back, apart from maybe his 2 strikers. And what happens is team sort of sets up into a 4-4-2 in defense. But once he gets that possession of the ball, his team goes into a 4-1-2-1-2, into attack. So that's like something you could also consider with the 4-1-2-1-2. It definitely does sort of change the shape depending on what tactics you obviously have on there. Offensive style, as I mentioned, the balance of possession for me is always the way to go. Attacking width, I wouldn't try and go up width though. I wouldn't go, as I mentioned, you want to play to certain formations strengths. At the end of the day, narrow is a tight formation which is going to give you a ping pong option. So you want to probably lower your width to about a 3, 4, 5. 5 if you're a little bit wider, you want to sort of spread the play a little bit more. But for me, I would say about a 3 or a 4. You know, keep the tight play, the 1-2s. You know, get the players running behind the defense, and that's what the 4-1-2-1-2 is always good about. Players in the box, you can always mess around with this. I don't think there's anything set when it comes to players in the box. I don't think any players really got like the go-to tactic when it comes to playing in the box. It really depends on your play style and sort of what you want when it comes to attack. Because personally, when I'm playing like a 4-2-3-1, let's say, because that's the formation I use as my main formation, this is the best way I can give you the best example. I want my CDMs when I'm on the wing to give me that option, the cut back option, but I don't want them to be running past my cam. I want them to always be sat there in a certain position where they can be the cut back option, and then I can play from them. That's why I have them on balance, because sometimes they will give me that more advanced run. So that's why, obviously, if you haven't seen my 4-2-3-1 custom tactic, it's actually, I think actually it'll be my 30-0 custom tactic. You'll see what I use regarding that. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'm not going to give you guys the custom tactics or what I would use, because I haven't got enough, you know, experience with these formations yet at a high level, which I will be practicing very shortly. That's why I can give you some more detail in the future coming formation guides and whatnot. But the players in the box, it really depends on your playstyle. You can even see on the image there, you know, how many people are actually getting into the box. You know, you can sort of pick up how you want your team to basically play. So that's obviously quite a nice thing to do. And then just sort of just experiment with it. If you think, oh, maybe these people are being a bit too more attacking, like my centre mids are running too far forward, okay, lower the player in the box by 1, and then if they're still too much forward, okay, down again. Is, you know, just keep experimenting with it, and you will eventually find your right tactics. And that's what happened with me in my 4-2-3-1. I've always tried so many different things with the 4-2-3-1, but I've eventually found sort of a tactic what I am enjoying right now. But let's get into the instructions, what you can use in the 4-1-2-1-2, and sort of how this formation plays out. So with the 4-1-2-1-2, as I mentioned, it's a fast-paced attacking formation, what's going to get you chances and possibly goals, depending on how good your finishing and your chance creation is. But there's some things you need to consider when building your team. You're always going to need a strong sort of ball-winning CDM. You know, like you're seeing pro teams, it'll be Vieira who's that holding CDM, like a Fabinho, somebody who's big, who has long legs, to be able to basically just break up the play nice and early, faster the better is always usually that seems to be the case. But you know, at the end of the day, you need quite a tool, I would say, a CDM. Sissoko, if you want to have a cheap option. Kante will always do a good job for you, though, because Kante is an overpowered sort of CDM, sort of centre mid guy. He's an overpowered card on this game, which he should be for such a high rated. But yeah, you get the idea what I'm sort of saying with these CDM. It needs to be that guy who's going to win you that ball back, and, you know, they're going to do it quick for you. They need to be the guy who's going to boss that midfield. You know, you see it in like real football, like Fabinho will boss the midfield and stuff like that. So that's the type of player you need in the CDM roles. Your 2 centre mids, they sort of need to be box to box, more attacking sort of players. Maybe you can get away with one being more slightly defensive, but you still need them to come into your attack, because if you're only attacking with 4 players, you're going to have a hard time basically creating chances, especially when people are using drop back. So you would probably want your 2 centre mids on the balanced sort of styles, and you want them to be able to attack and defense. That's why Ruud Gullit is obviously the main guy when it comes to a 4-1-2-1-2 or just any formation at the end of the day, because he can attack, he can defend, he can do whatever you want. But like a Kevin De Bruyne, there's a few other different options which I will be bringing a video out on, like different players at different price ranges, what you can use. So watch out for that as well. Obviously, content going to be flowing out this channel very shortly. Finally signed my pro contract with my new team, which announcement will be coming shortly. So yeah, but let's get into the player instructions, what you can and can't, which you can use, but some I probably won't recommend. So starting off with, you can do keeper, but do not touch the keeper. I've seen some people use the sweeper keeper, as I mentioned every time. It's not the way to go. But let's get into the attacking runs on the defense. So right back and left back, obviously what's good about the narrow is where I've mentioned it's so through the middle, and a lot of people like to have balance on their right back and left backs, so it gives you an option wider. But as I mentioned, 4-1-2-2 is not the greatest formations when you're defending, and that's why always recommend having stay back on your right back and left back. If you have these on balance, you'll counter, like the person you're playing is probably going to use a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1, and they're going to counter you like crazy down that wings. So I definitely recommend having stay back while attacking. You could always naturally make these players run more attacking by either using the L1 trigger. You set them off with an L1 X, A, X, whatever controller you use, pass, or you just run with the ball with them, you know, whatever it may be. But I definitely recommend using stay back because you're going to get countered like crazy if you don't. But if you want to be a little bit more attacking straight off the bat, balance, but do not use joining the attack, because I will say you will be left with your CDM and your two centre backs. And with how they've changed the custom tactics and whatnot right now, most people, you probably use a 4-4-2. Their two strikers will always be up top. They will basically always be on a 2-on-3 situation, and if one right pass on them, it's always going to be they're going to get through, especially if they got the wingers running behind your wing backs because they're too attacking. But yeah, going into the CDM option, as I mentioned, you need quite a tall guy who's going to win the ball back. And for me, if it's how I was setting it up, I would have cut passing, stay back, and cover centre. This is because, at the end of the day, cover centre is the most important thing when it comes to a CDM. As I mentioned, you haven't got that width in defense in your midfield to defend wide, but you need your central CDM to always be stuck in that middle, so you've always got him there to win the ball back. You can sort of mess around with balance and man mark. I've mentioned plenty of times to use balance because this is because you get the best of both. For cut passing, obviously, they're going to be running a little bit wider to just try and intercept the pass a lot earlier. Man markers, obviously, they're going to be quite structured in what they're doing. But balance, you get the best of both. So that's what you can always, I think, every tactic you can sort of mess around with, but the defensive position, which is cover center on a CDM. And then going into the attacking support, obviously you've got stay back, get forward, dropping between defenders. I'm not a fan of dropping between defenders. If you're going to use maybe like balance right back and left backs, you could probably use drop it between defenders. This is because your team will probably like sort of shape up to like a 5-2-1-2 in attack. But for me, stay back while attacking is always better. You want to be a little bit more aggressive on defense and whatnot. But if you are going to use attacking wing backs, definitely recommend try dropping between defenders if you want. But yeah, always stay back, I would say, on a CDM, because on 4-1-2 and 2 especially, as you're not going to have that defensive cover with your two CDMs or whatever it may be, or your wingers. Going into the right centre mid and left centre mid, and this is where I'm slightly different to maybe a few other pros. I would probably use cover wing on my right centre mid and left centre mid. As I mentioned, you don't have the width in defence when you use a narrow formation, but with cover wing, they'll actually start covering the wider positions for you, and they will sort of give you an option when defending wider, which is very important because a lot of people will start wide and then come into the middle. But if you've got your CDM there, your middle's always going to be covered, but you need a bit of help on the wing. I wouldn't recommend, changing any of this. Keep this balance. You want your centre mids basically helping you in attack. Get in the box if you really want, but I don't think that's also necessary. But yeah, cover wing on the right centre mid and left centre mid, and that's how I mentioned, like, your team will set up like a 4-4-2. If you want your team to set up like a 4-4-2, put stay back on both of these, cover wing, and then come back on your cam, and they will literally just set up like a 4-4-2. You might not even need to put balance stay back on your right centre mid and left centre mid, but I would probably recommend doing it if you want to be more defensive and obviously your team to shape up as quite a different formation, because 4-4-2 is one of the better formations to defend in. So that's obviously quite nice that you can have like 4-4-2 defending but 4-1-2 in attack. Going into the cam spot, and personally I always have stay forward on the cam. This is because it helps how the 4-1-2-1-2 glitch comes through. There's a glitch with 4-1-2-1-2 and 4-3-1-2 where often your left centre mid or your right centre mid will swap positions with your cam, and that is because most of the time a lot of people have balance on that, so the player will naturally sit deeper, and the game just basically clicks that it needs to put somebody in that cam spot. So a lot of the times, because your cam's deep, your right centre mid will probably take a spot of the cam, and your cam will go into the right centre mid spot. So recommend having stay forward and maybe even free roam on your cam, just to make sure they're always sticking up top. But stay forward for me is an essential for your cam spots. Your counter attack plays will also be very effective when doing that. Obviously, if you have stay forward, your team's not going to defend like a 4-4-2, but that's a risk you got to take. Maybe I haven't tried obviously balance with the two comebacks, which might be quite a nice tactic to use, and that actually might stop the glitch as well. But have to experiment a little bit more with that. Going into the strikers, you have plenty of options when it comes to the strikers. I think the go-to, the guerrilla style, is always getting behind on the 2 strikers. If you play 4-1-2-1-2, it's probably because one guy, and that's called a huge gorilla. You probably know him, the pro player. Getting behind this is like was always the essential when it comes to your strikers. I feel like when you play a narrow, it's quick attacking style play. Most of the time it would be like stay forward on the counter and getting behind on the 2 strikers. But for me, I have balance on both. This is because I'm okay at like triggering the runs. I don't need help with the game naturally triggering the runs for me. If you want to know how to trigger your runs, you just press L1 on your controller or LB on your trigger, and that will be an attacking run. If you want the players to come close, you press R1 or RB and they come towards the ball. So yeah, that is 2 options what you can do when obviously calling the players and whatnot. But for me, as I mentioned, I don't need them to do getting behind. I think balance is the best. You have a bit of options with all sorts. You get target man, false line, getting behind, all into one. And yeah, what you could do, as I mentioned though, your team's naturally going to be quite narrow. So what could be quite a nice option, if you've got like a more of a guy who's quite good on the wing, fast, nippy and whatnot up top, you can put drift wide on one of them, and what will happen, he'll naturally go into a wider spot and your cam will sort of come more into the attacking role as a striker. So you're basically sort of playing like a 4-3-3. But very central at times, so that's a drift wide option for you. You could even maybe try both of them on drift wide, but for me I would probably put one at drift wide and then the other one balance, and then the cam obviously stay forward and whatnot. So you're getting plenty of chances to score goals, but obviously against the drop back, who knows how many chances you really are going to get. But that is the 4-1-2-1-2 formation guide for you. There will be a new sort of updated formation guides coming up in very shortly, where I'm actually going to show you what tactics I would use for each formation and why I use them and so forth. So hopefully these tactics will help you out in the future. Obviously these ones are just to give you more of an idea what sort of tactics would work and sort of what sort of styles you could play and whatnot. But yeah, that'll be it for the video, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and peace.